Hi there. All right, so I'm Mark, and I'm going to give you a workflow demonstration of this piece that I did called Slater Sunset. Seems a few people are interested, so it's kind of a fun little shot. So let me get at it. So um, I wanted to get a shot of a sunset down a major east-west street. With all the lights and buildings and stuff. So I used a tool called the photographer's ephemeris to calculate when exactly the sun was going to be setting right at the end of the street. And of course, it worked out dismally. So here I was, sort of standing facing down this street with about 10 minutes to go, and there was absolutely nothing, nothing to be seen. So I decided, what the heck, I'm here, let's take some shots. So I did. I shot this one here, and I really liked the clouds in it. And then a few minutes later, I shot this one here, and there's a bunch of other ones, but for the purpose of this workflow, these are the two main shots that I used. You can see in this one here, what I liked was the sheen of the lights on the street and the lights coming on in the windows, and that all kind of added a really nice atmosphere. But as you can see, the sunset failed to materialize completely. In this one here, what I liked was these clouds, and specifically this little bit of sun at the end of the street. So it was trying, but anyway, it looked much better when I finally got this thing all composed. Yeah, so let me see here. Okay, and so all of the American guys watching here, you can see that we have got I'm in Ottawa, Canada. You can see we've got a lady, a princess, who's driven all the way from Florida to be in my photograph. So that was quite nice of her. Thank you very much. Anyway, so back to this shot here. So what I want to do is I want to bring out the sky, and what I did, of course, is in Lightroom. I really messed around with it because I really wanted to get some really cool detail in that sky, but specifically these light rays. And of course, it totally demolished the rest of the image, but that's what I was looking for. And then in this shot here, what I was looking for was, again, the lights of the cars on the street and the lights inside, the light glow inside of this the building and whatnot. So this is my Lightroom version of it, and you can see here. Princess again with the lights and everything, but this beautiful glow on the street, and the lights really amped up nicely. So what I did then was I used both of those shots in Photoshop. So I simply just edited them as Photoshop layers. And all right, and here we are in Photoshop, and what I'm showing you here is the base layer that I imported from Lightroom. And then the second layer. All right, so what I want to do is I want the screen from the bottom layer to show in this area here, because I like this as my sort of my foundation shot, and then I want the sky in there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mask out this part of this layer so that I can see the layer underneath, which is my sky layer, and that's what this is right here. Click that, and now so I basically masked it in. I just did that with a paintbrush or with a brush, and just brushed that in. So that mask right there is nothing but it's basically painted it in. All right, the next layer. All right, so that's my shot. That's my base shot, and it looks like crap right now, but that's what I'm going to start to work with. Then what I do is I take a copy of that. So the Shift Option Command E. And that creates a stamp layer and essentially a copy of it. So if I do that for you right here, it's going to take a copy of that layer right there, and it creates a copy. Yeah, and so it's a brand new copy to work with. And this allows me to blur a layer. So let's just pretend that I'm working on that layer, and what I do is I blur the entire layer. So what I'll do is on that layer, what I did is I came up under filter and blur and motion blur, and I used a completely vertical blur and a large amount here just to give it just to really blur the thing right out so you don't recognize anything at all in there. But then, so you can see the whole thing is a big blur right now, but what I want to do is gradiate the blur from the bottom to the top so that it's blurred at the top but not at the bottom. And to do that, what I did is I simply masked it, and I added a mask. I painted a mask in there using the gradient tool. So white mask, and then the gradient was this black to white gradient, and I just started down here and drag that guy up and essentially fooled around with this for a bit. But what that does is it gives you this this gradiated mask that allows all of the blur to shine through at the top, but then it basically opens up the layer underneath, and so that's what that is right here. Combination of the blurred layer and the non-blurred layer using gradient mask. So that part you get that for sure. Okay, now this part right here. So this is my smart filter layer, and what I did then again was to create another stamp layer and apply a bunch of filters on top of that. So again, it's the Shift Option Command E creates this layer, and then what I did is I came up to filter and I converted it for smart filters, and then I started to add filters to it. So the idea there is that what I can do is I can go back into any one of those filters anytime and make adjustments right on the layer rather than having to start over again. And so that's the beauty of that. So again, this is the filter, the smart filter layer I'm going to start with, and then I just added a bunch of plug-in filters to it. Okay, so if I were to walk through it, I used these 4 filters. Actually, I didn't use the Raise 2.0 at all. It's in there, but I didn't really use it that much. So I used this Exposure X from Alien Skin. I used Color Effects Pro from Nick, and I used the Topaz Restyle filter. And this Restyle filter is the one that really brought it home for me. So let me just kind of open it up for you here. This is kind of cool. So bear with me, because it's going to take a while to open this thing up. Okay, so here we are in Topaz Restyle. And I don't recall the exact setting I used, but here's the idea. And of course, it's going to vary with any image you do, so it really doesn't matter. So you open up your image, and you can navigate down through these collections of color schemes. And this is so cool. I think for this one here, let's say I use street. Once you can come in, you can just start to walk down these lists of presets, and you can see what it's going to do to your image. And in this case here, it's so cool. This doesn't work at every product, but with this image here, it really works. So you can just get a sense of what kind of colors you'd like to have in your final image. But you can spend hours in this thing. But I just basically walked down through it. I found one I liked, and there we were. So let's say, for example, that's the one I like right there. Then all I would do is I would click it. It would modify the image, and I would come over here. I would press OK, and it would bring that image back out and apply it to my image in Photoshop. All right, and that's the way these things work. They just add their style to that particular image. Anyway, so that's the Topaz Restyle plugin. Okay, this is the image opened in Color Effects Pro, and the only thing I did in here was I used the Pro contrast, and what I just did is just up the dynamic contrast, taste, and you can see it just manages the contrast in there, and that's all I did with that. All right, and then you press, of course, OK. I'm going to press cancel, and you press OK. Okay, and then Exposure X. This is a product from Alien Skin. It's going to have to go Okay, so here we are, opened in Exposure X, and I love this thing. And you can come in here and you can try all different kinds of effects on it as well. But the one I use for this one here, because I'm really I'm an old guy and I like the Technicolor stuff, and it just gives me this amazingly cool color. I chose this Technicolor Process 2 strip configuration, and just left it. I left it alone. I mean, you can come over here and you can mess around with all this stuff over here, but I really just left it alone because I like what I see. I love the blue and the orange and everything. So anyway, that's what I did. So now we're basically through our third plugin. I pressed apply, and it would save it. I'm pressing cancel at this point. And so that gives me essentially the image. Now, I tested this on a few people, and they said, it's kind of cool, except that I can't see the flag on the bus, and this is Ottawa. So what I did was I wanted to bring some attention to the flag on the bus. So I just, what I did is I added a curves layer on the whole thing, and then I just masked it all out, gave it a black mask, and then just painted in the flag on the bus. All right, so that gave me, that image there, or that color there. And then I wanted to finish the whole thing off with a bit of a vignette. So I, added a totally black layer. I gave it a soft light blending mode, and then just painted out most of it. I left the corners and the edges in there, but that sort of gave me the vignette that I'm looking for. You can kind of see the difference there. So anyway, that's kind of the image. Let me just kind of walk you through it all one last time here, so you can kind of see what happened. I can come along in there, and then come down through here. Okay, so start part 2. I added essentially the foreground, gave it the blur, added in the Exposure X, Color Effects Pro, and Topaz Restyle effects, which gave it that, which is, I like that. And then, just for my own personal taste, I just, lightened up the flag on the bus, gave it a bit of a vignette, and it's still a bit dark, so I just amped up the brightness a bit. So there you have it. So there you go. So I mean, nothing wild. It's just turned out to be kind of a cool image. I hope that really, I hope this helps, for you guys that are looking for a bit of training and education and some neat effects. Maybe this will help. Go out and try it, have some fun. And for you guys who are way past this point, thanks for sitting through this. I'm sure it was pretty painful. All right. Anyway, that's it. For all you guys in the States, have a happy Thanksgiving, and thanks for watching. Okay, thank you. Bye now.